Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Today is the first working day, I think, Monday, January the 3rd, 2017. I got to get used to saying that. A lot of new things are coming this year. New president, new rules and regulations, regulatory compliance. Hopefully for all of you, including myself, a very good new year. Last year was something to be described. It's hard to put in words, and I'm looking forward to a great 2017. I hope you are. So let's get going here. We're still doing our ITSM brief. If you're not familiar with ITSM, that's a global standard for IT service management. And my name is Manuel Lloyd, and I talk about IT service management for the healthcare and banking industries. Particularly, I am focused on the healthcare industry. I do think there's a lot of changes coming down the pike, and I get a lot of requests and inquiries about helping small to medium-sized medical practices and some larger practices too, but mainly small to medium-sized who don't have a CIO. They typically don't have an IT department or an IT staff, and what I help them do is with their CIO strategy, design, transition, operations, and continual service improvement. And then we also help place, technology professionals, help build a help desk, service desk, whatever the case may be. But today I'm going to talk to you about eradicating failure, addressing healthcare executives' fear of downed IT networks and systems. That should be a healthy fear. That should be a fear that you are always aware of, constantly aware of, that things could possibly go down. And if they do, what's your plan in place? We have to get out of this mentality of thinking as IT as a utility and, at the kiddies table, if you will. It's a part of business. It's not, down IT networks are not a technical issue. They're a business issue. They're the issue of your practice to stay in business, to continue to see patients, to meet regulatory compliance, to, cybersecurity, the whole 9 yards. So let's get into what I'm going to talk about here today. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things up there, but those are not the 5 things I'm going to give you. That's going to be within this speech. And you have to excuse me. I have a New Year's cold, but I'm still marching on. So, for the past few decades, advanced technology has unquestionably enhanced the way we conduct day-to-day business for our medical practices, for your banks, for any kind of business. And a stable, reliable, and secure IT system means efficient operations. We specialize in operational efficiency and effectiveness. You want to optimize productivity, service, and communications. It requires that to be in the business that you're in, especially if you're in a medical practice. It's going to foster greater opportunity and increase revenue potential as well, though, because the more technology advances, the faster you can operate, more accurately, leaner. Things are getting more secure, and things are getting less hassle-free, where you don't need IT people as much as you used to. You need IT systems, but some of these systems are automating some things, and you don't need as many IT people in your reserve to help you, because so many practice managers and executives are so IT savvy, and things are so intuitive these days. It's getting to a point where you just kind of push a button. Not complete automation. We're not throwing IT people to the curb. I mean, heck, I'm an IT person, so I don't want to get kicked to the curb. I'm just trying to talk about the realities of things. Today, though, through technology, medical practices anywhere can serve patients through telehealth, telemedicine, telepsychiatry. Technology is making it feasible to do these things. Even if you decided that you want to have some kind of a global business, technology fosters that. with this 24-hour a day, 7-day a week mentality, there are certain things you can do. For instance, with your patient portal, patients can access that patient portal 24/7 if they needed to, and that's a service, that's a value-added service that you can provide to your patients. Facebook, Twitter, just communications. There's so many things that technology can help you do, and we get so dependent on it. In today's business world, anyone can be as big as they want to be. Whoops, get that back over here. But the greater dependency on technology also presents a paradox of sorts, in the sense that the consequences of network failure can often be fatal to a small to medium-sized practice. You don't have the monies to, be down like a Google or a Blue Cross Blue Shield. Let's take something in the industry. You just don't have you can't absorb that kind of loss easier as a small to medium-sized practice. Now, I help practices that have one doctor in their practice, all the way to 200 doctors in their practice, and it's all the same. It's just economies of scale. But the more money you have, the easier it is to absorb the same kind of impact. So if your impact is, your systems went down and you only have one building, that's going to be different than, let's say, a Carolina health system who has one building go down. It's not going to affect them because they have data centers spread across the region. System outages and failures can result in service hiccups that could cause you problems, lost profits. Take a Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, if they do go down and they have a service interruption, their profits are going to be a lot more than yours as well. So it's a catch-22. If you think of outside of the healthcare industry, you remember BlackBerry, Intuit, and Virgin Blue, even Delta Airlines and Visa, all of these companies, had service interruptions of their system. Well, they lost a lot of money, but they had a lot of money too. So you just got to think about how many resources these folks have to bounce back and continue with business as usual, if you will, no matter what their underlying issue may be. Until it's resolved, they have enough money to sustain themselves. But you that are listening to me right now, small to medium-sized medical practices don't have that same luxury. For example, if a medical practice pays $20,000 to recover from an email virus that corrupts their patient data, you have HIPAA fines, possibly you have lawsuits, possibly you have all these other things. That's going to be a lot different than if a Blue Cross Blue Shield has to pay that kind of money. So data recovery repairs after that failure could take you offline for days. You remember the hospital there or the hospital group there in DC area, DC and Maryland? They had to send patients away. The one that I know that had to send patients away for like 2 weeks was in Hollywood, California. For 2 weeks, they had to send patients to different providers and stuff. I can't imagine how much loss they had. I don't even know if they're still operating as themselves or if they've been absorbed by another organization. That's something that, we won't be able to know. Here's a note I have here that the National Archives and Records Administration in Washington found that 93% of businesses filed for bankruptcy within 12 months of an experience of data loss and prolonged downtime for 10 or more days. Now, I can only imagine, let's see, just looking at this report here, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I can only imagine if a medical practice was down for 10 or more days. that, number one, you guys are pretty smart and savvy out there. If you're down for a day, you're already on top of things. And when you think about the cost of being down for that long and employees not being able to operate and patients not being able to come see you, I'm hoping, it's required by law, by HIPAA, that you have a backup plan, what they call a contingency plan, which is located in 164.308A7, which is contingency plan for the HIPAA code. It's something you have to be prepared for. I mean, and that's my next topic. Apparently I already covered the catch-22. I mentioned it, but I didn't highlight it. But my next topic is be aware and prepared, not overwhelmed. Because all of that stuff that I just talked to you about previously could overwhelm you. But you want to be prepared. You want to have a plan. While the threat of data loss and downtime is acknowledged, ask a group of medical practices how much they lose annually from network and system failure. And you'll likely be met with many blank stares and wild guesses like this picture of this lady here. I don't know. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people really just don't know. It's not that they don't care. There's so many other things that, quote unquote, seem more important. But when you pull the plug from your IT, guess what? It seems to be the most important. Or you have those executives who fear going into that geek world because they don't understand the language. You'll hear me say this all the time. You need to find yourself an interpreter of geek. And if you're a geek, you need to find yourself an interpreter of business. Best of both worlds, somebody who knows both. Hint, hint. I mean, perhaps these medical practices, they can sound off the hourly rate that they've been charged for IT services, or what they've been recently paid to repair or upgrade their EHR software or their hardware. But very few can tell you or even venture to guess how much is lost in productivity, revenue, services, and patient goodwill. Good customer service. They don't think about that. They just think, well, we saw this many patients today, we made this much revenue, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Eradicating Group is another research firm. I have a report here. Talks about recently projected the estimated cost of downtime to be $25,000 for every small practice employing less than 100 people. That's a lot of money. Can you imagine that every hour? $25,000 an hour. Medium-sized practices employed anywhere between 100 and 1,000 employees were hit even harder in this report. They're hit even harder by failed technology at an estimate of $800,000 per year. $880,600, this report says. That's a lot of money. Excuse me. Is it any wonder, though, why many smart practice managers and healthcare executives these days aren't sleeping soundly at night? These are things that keep them up at night. They're stressing over something they feel powerless to address. The geeks know this stuff, but I don't. I mean, the stability and efficiency of their IT system and network is something that they want to have control over. And I'm telling the truth if you're listening to this and you're a healthcare executive or practice manager. But you're not as powerless as you think. Most IT system failures can be totally avoided or reduced in severity quite easily and inexpensively if you plan. All it takes is some risk assessment, a good plan, a proactive maintenance program, and the right sizing of your legacy IT budget. Because you're going to use IT like, how long have we been using electricity? IT is the same way. IT is going to be something that's horizontal across your entire medical practice. So you can't really, which brings me into my next topic, afford the status quo. Can you really afford the status quo? Not in healthcare. You can't. You just can't. A successful medical practice must align the technology with the practice initiatives, not the other way around. You can't align your practice around technology, or you'll never succeed. You'll always be buying new product. You'll never be able to use the stuff you've already paid for and you own. You have it. You bought it in a CapEx model, not in an OpEx model, and you own this equipment. It's on your balance sheets, the whole 9 yards. So constant employee productivity must be maintained to meet the needs and expectations of patients. And we rely on technologies for this. To successfully do this, an honest assessment of the risk is necessary. Regrettably, many small to medium-sized medical practices remain in a state of denial, and mismanaged technology has, many serious consequences on your practice. But in the same time, day to day, it's just costing you more money. But you don't see that because you're not managing it. IT service management is important. Here's another report I got here. Let's see this one here. Semantic SMB says 50% of medical practices, or really businesses, admit to having no backup disaster recovery plan in place. Do you? You have to. If you're a medical practice, it's in, and you don't believe me, look it up. It's in 45 CFR 164 308 A7 A, B, C, D, and E. And then 164 308 A8 is evaluation. 164.308 A7 is disaster recovery plan. I'm sorry, II. Let's see here. 164.308 A7 II is backup data backup plan. B is disaster recovery plan. C is emergency mode operation plan. D is test and revision procedure. That's an addressable one. The first three were required. D is test and revision procedure. E is data criticality analysis. That's another addressable one. So it's 4 required, 2 addressable. But if you've heard me speak before, I say addressable, you might as well just think about it as being required. So you have to have a plan. It's required by law. So this report from Semantic talking about the 50% admitting to not having a plan in place, also admitting that you violated HIPAA. This report also says 41% of those surveyed confessed that they had never even given much thought to implementing a disaster recovery or business continuity plan. You're breaking the law. You are breaking the law. Go look it up for yourself. And if you ever get audited, by the way, phase 2 of those audits will be hitting small to medium-sized medical practices. And guess what? IT people who might be listening to this as well, if you're an independent IT person, they're coming after the BAs too. So software vendors, hardware vendors, service providers, they're coming after BAs, business associates, small to medium-sized medical practices. There's no need to fear, though. If you got your act together, if you've got all the things that you know are in that HIPAA security guide, you should be fine. For you, well, I won't get into that, but anyway, every day medical practices are gambling with the lifeline of their actual practice. Some may know they're planning or playing with fire, but budget limitations may prevent them from hiring adequate internal IT people. Well, we can't afford an internal IT person. You need to find a way. We're an outsourced IT firm, but I tell you, you still need to have somebody inside. Try to find a way. And if you can't, find a good external IT group that can help you simulate somebody being there by making sure all your problems are taken care of on a daily basis. But find a way to get somebody. Often the IT support that's on payroll is overburdened. If you have somebody, they're either overworked, overburdened, or stuck in a constant reactive mode, firefighting, where they spend days resolving issues that are already being that are hindering the productivity and patient services. Providers get frustrated. I mean, it's just a hostile environment. They can never break this cycle to get to the point where they're actually proactively approaching things. It's all break fix. If it breaks, okay, I'll fix it. Put a ticket in. They're constantly firefighting or keeping the lights on. That's not a good way to be. There's a better way. I mean, this same break fix mentality is also the reason why many medical practices aren't hiring in-house IT people. They instead phone in expensive, as needed emergency support when issues arise. But that emergency support costs you a lot of money. I mean, there's so many smaller practices and needlessly bleeding money every day by subjecting themselves to hourly rates, service charges, trip fees, wait times for your on-call IT support. You call them up, hi, welcome to ABC IT company. Please leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If this is an emergency, press this and an agent will call you back. And the first thing that IT person, when they call you back is, I need a credit card before we can come out. And it's going to cost you triple or double or quadruple. That's just not a good way of doing business. It doesn't matter if you're a medical practice or just a small business. I mean, but that's the status quo. Management cuts corners because they either feel they have no choice given today's economy, or they're completely ignorant, I hate to say it, to the daily revenue being lost by mismanaged technology. I call it the CLO disease, Chief Laissez-Faire Officer, CLO. I mean, some know this will prove to be a costly mistake, but they have no real vision to what it is already costing them every day. And they wonder at the end of the year why their numbers are not met. They blame everybody. The finger point star. Well, it was the medical managers. It was the providers. Didn't see enough patients. You didn't do enough on social media. Everybody gets away except the IT people. No. If you look hard enough, the biggest cost center in your medical practice is going to be IT. I can almost guarantee that. It's going to be close to the top. But then you don't fire your IT people if you have some internally. How about training them or educating them or getting them some help from the outside? I mean, you might need to fire them. Maybe they're not that good. But if they don't have any real way to look at the numbers like you do in accounting or reporting, quality reports, your EHR reporting, you need some kind of a system to gain metrics on critical success factors and key performance indicators to tell you about what's going on with your network. Excuse me. So a lot of medical practices don't even have a healthy enough fear of technology failure. They trust it too much. I was in the Marine Corps, and the president that used to like to quote this a lot. My boss at Camp David when I was in the Marine Corps, President Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. I mean, these medical managers and executives, they don't even spend much time thinking about the true return of their IT investment. They think about it, but then they go, well, how do I measure it? You got to keep asking yourself a few questions to determine if your practice can really afford the status quo. Here are a few questions. How often, is employee productivity and patient accessibility or services stalled each day from down networks or EHR systems? Just think about it. I can call up a medical place right now and just go, well, we can't because our systems are down. And if a patient hears that enough, they're not coming. That happened to us, my family. My wife and I, we have 8 kids, and we take it for checkups, and we went to this one place. Well, our system was down. We went back to another time. Our system was still down. One time we went there, they said, well, we can't see you because our voice over IP phones are down. I'm like, why in the world can't they see us? Because their phones are down. Something's wrong here. That's something to think about. Another question is, how much downtime can your practice truly afford, and what kind of backup or recovery solutions are in effect when systems are available? Do you have high availability, meaning fail over or fail safe, where if this system goes down, we have a plan in place to automatically kick this system in, or a backup system? Again, look at HIPAA 164.308A7 or contingency plan. You have to have it in place. There are 4 required, 2 addressable. And the 2 addressable, they really are required if you think about it. I mean, you can't do the other ones without, a test and revision procedure is the one A or addressable. And the other one is application criticality analysis. How you're going to be able to do the data backup plan, disaster recovery plan, and emergency mode operation plan. And you have to evaluate it, So another question is asked, what level of IT support can be assessed or accessed? Can it be accessed quickly enough to minimize damage? Do you have somebody on site, in-house? Do you have a service level agreement with an outside firm that says if we go down, you can be here in 2 hours or an hour? Do you have a secondary site to say, hey, we're declaring a disaster, flip up our secondary site, and we'll change the DNS entries and be good to go here? Are you confident that your practice can either be back up online or be able to access data with minimum disruption no matter what? You should be. That's what a good plan is going to do for you. Another question is your most critical data, for you, it's going to be your EPHI and your PHI. Is it frequently backed up? Do you make copies and send them off site of your paper records? And do you have a secondary? Now, I'm not talking about a cloud backup here either, folks. There's a difference between having a backup and having a disaster recovery plan. That's why the HIPAA code separates data backup plan, which if you have it in the cloud, great, you met that requirement. But disaster recovery plan is a completely different beast. And an emergency mode operation plan is even a bigger beast. So it's like having a cake, or you want a cake, right? And you get upset if you only have the eggs and the powder. I don't even know how to make a cake, but the eggs and the cake mix, the cream, the butter, all the ingredients. And you throw them all into one pot and you go, that's not a cake. No, it's not. There's a process. You take the eggs and you whip them up in the butter, and I don't know how to make a cake. I'm just using this as an analogy. And you stick it in the oven and you have to wait. There's a process. If you don't have a process in place, you're in trouble. You just got part of the ingredients. The cloud backup may just be the egg. Another server may just be the butter. So what? You don't get too, don't be so cheap and let your business, your practice go down based upon, well, it's never happened to us before. That's one of the stupidest statements I've ever heard in a medical practice. It's never happened before. I wouldn't even go there to get treated. Well, we're not going to give him this drug because he's never had a problem before. No, I want you to be proactive with my body, with my health. You should be the same way with the health of your IT. Do you have data on personal laptops? You probably do. You just don't know it. There's a company out there called Iscan. I think they got bought up by another company, but you probably can still find out about it. But Iscan will scan your personal devices and tell you if there's any PII or EPHI on those machines. I almost guarantee you have data on your laptops, your iPads, smartphones, and not yours necessarily either. It could be those of the employees because you let them come in and use your Wi-Fi. And they're just trying to get their work done. They're not trying to do anything malicious. They're just trying to get their work done. And they'll use shadow IT methods to do that. You can look at my video on shadow IT here on my YouTube channel. All the backups stored in a location off-site and quickly accessible in the event of theft, fire, flood, electronic failure, whatever. Are you using any custom installed programs? This is huge. Any custom installed software, and is the business still in? Is the vendor still in business? Do you have some kind of agreement that they go out of business, you can get the code? You should say, hey, look, we need something in our agreement that says if you go out of business, we get to get your source code so we can continue to operate and sunset your program. These are all things you need to think about. Are the account details, licensing agreements, and security settings somewhere on record for this software? Are your systems truly protected from theft, hackers, or viruses? Are passwords to sensitive data change whenever the employee leaves? Most times not. Well, Susie won't do anything bad. She's not like that. You don't know Susie. Susie might not be very happy that you fired her. So when was the last time you even tested your backups to make sure that they were working? And how quickly did they come up? Listen, I know this is all overwhelming, but I'm going to go to my next topic here, and this should help you a little bit more. We're going to get into some good stuff here, which is, the 5 things medical practice can do right now, today, to preserve your network and your healthcare systems, your IT systems. Number 1 is obvious, back up your files every day. And I can go deep into this topic here. I'm already 30 minutes into my speech, but, the number of practices that never back up their network is astonishing. They think they're backing it up, but they're not. Here's another, let me get this report here. Another report from Symantec on SMB data backup. Only 23% of businesses are backing up their data on a daily basis. Now, this is an old report, but believe it or not, I've gone into places where they thought it was being backed up, and when we looked to see when their last backup was, it was last year. And I'm not being, like joking, like December 2016. I'm like January 2016. Fewer than 50% are backing up data weekly. I'm not going to go completely off this report here because, I know a number of events can result in data loss. The important and frequently backing up of your network can't be overstated. And with your backups, HIPAA code security 164.308A7 AIIA data backup plan. Make sure your backup windows don't interfere with your malware scanning and virus scanning windows, because then you're going to run into a problem where your data may not be completely being backed up. You got to have a plan. You need to have some kind of a big enough pipe to do it off-site, so that in the case of a disaster, you're up and going. That's going to be a whole different topic. I won't get into that. Let's go to number 2. Ensure backup procedures are checked regularly. You want to ensure that they're checked regularly. Many times, practice executives, whether you be a medical manager, practice manager, healthcare executive, think they have a backup system in place only to find out when it's too late it hasn't been working properly because you never tested it. It may seem like files are being backed up daily, but the backup has become corrupt at some point in time. Like, let's say you have a disaster on Wednesday, but your backup was corrupt on Tuesday. You didn't even know it. You want to check the backup procedures regularly to make sure that they're working properly. And this is what happens in a continuous service improvement cycle, where you're constantly checking your systems always checking them, not just putting out fires. You want to be sure that all data can be recovered. Let's talk about this. In the age of, BYOD, or bring your own device, it's also important to frequently back up those devices. Even if they're personal devices, laptops, iPads, smartphones of the employees. But if they have your data, you want to back up what they have of your data. So the third thing, let's go to the third thing. You want to make sure that you have updated virus protection. Firewalls are always on and enabled. Even, I would recommend that at the end user level, you don't even use a PC, a fat PC. You use a thin PC or a thin client, because that way you lower significantly the risk of anything happening at the end user level. So way too many practices either have no virus protection and they install. You go, well, no, that can't be true. Yeah, it is, because I've gone into places where they have free virus protection. which is a violation of the agreement of that company. A lot of them use AVG free or VAS free, and you're not supposed to. It's not meant for a commercial environment. That's stuff for people's homes. And if you're that cheap or that unaware, you better get in touch with a good IT person. If your IT person is allowing that, you need to fire them today and get somebody else, because that's not being frugal. That's being illegal and ignorant. Okay, you're stealing from people is what you're doing. Pay for your antivirus software. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. So when I say they don't have any, what I mean by that is that it's not that they don't have any software. They may have some, but it's not. You might as well not. Plus, the free stuff, excuse me, it's not going to protect you from everything. It's not meant to. It's free to let you see how well it works at home or whatever the case may be, so you can say, hey, we should use this at work. So a lot of it is expired. They'll have it and it'll be expired. You can go look and go, you're not protected. You're not fully protected. Then there's some software companies, and I can't believe that they do this, but in order to get your work done, they'll say, well, you're going to have to disable your antivirus or firewalls for us to install this software to work. And they go, okay, and they never turn it back on. And they wonder why they got, malware. So this kind of stuff makes your practice vulnerable to attacks, spam, all kinds of nonsense and stuff you don't really need. Files corrupted by a virus won't only bring down your network, like ransomware. But if the virus spreads like it is ransomware, it somehow spreads to your patient portal through the email addresses and gets to your customers, your patients, you're in a big chance of getting sued and definitely ruining your reputation. So you have to think about that. I mean, roughly 40% of small to medium-sized medical practices will have their network compromised by a hacker. Chances are you don't even know that the hacker's there. It takes 260 something days on average that I've read and that I've seen myself, about 269 days for you to even know a hacker was in your system. You won't even know it. Because hackers look online for unprotected and open ports and then infiltrate them with whatever they can with malicious codes and files, trying to steal data, trying to put ransomware on the, and usually ransomware comes from phishing schemes where people click on email links, but at the same time, it speaks to a greater thing of IT service management. I mean, if this malicious code can't be removed, like ransomware, without the encryption key, the hard drive's toast. What do you do? Well, if you listened to my speeches before, you'll know that to battle a ransomware attack, the best way is to have a solid and good backup. But you even have to be careful with that, because if your backups are not being backed up properly, you could be backing up the ransomware, and then you're toast. Or you have to go back so many days, and then you lose data. This is serious stuff. This is just another reason why backing up your data is so critical in today's world with all of these attacks going on. We're talking about Russia attacking our electoral system. We don't know that to be true yet, but it seems like it has happened, and it's all probable. But at the same time, our government has to do a better job. Updating critical service patches and changing passwords on the departure of an employee, especially IT people, because they have they have the keys to the kingdom. Just make sure when you do change your password, you're careful when it comes to SQL-based applications, because changing those passwords could cause your database to not work right, be corrupted. And it's bad. It's horrible. Number 4, you want to monitor the drives of your servers always. One of the things that is not even a hacker, it's just a slip up, is if dangerously full server drives can bring on a slew of problems ranging from program and server crashes, sluggish email, corruption of data. If you put your EHR system on the same drive as your Windows operating system, you've already made a mistake. And you should quickly try to get your IT sources to move that. You don't want to ever put your, and some of you already may know this, but you don't ever want to put your operating system. I have a acronym that I use to have the perfect server set up. And it's easy to remember. It's load. You want to load your server properly. Load. You want to have a log file a log file drive where all your logs are stored so they don't fill up your SQL Server database. And 98% of you out here, will you be using some kind of SQL, whether it be MySQL, Microsoft SQL, some kind of SQL-based server for your EHR. So you have a log file server. It could be a cheap drive that just stores the logs. You want your operating system drive to be mirrored. 2 drives mirrored in case one physically fails. Your operating system is still going. A is application drive. You want all your apps stored there in case you need to restore on that drive. And these are the first one is a cheap drive. The other 2 you want to have fast drives as possible. Have them mirrored in a RAID 0. At least check with your IT people. I mean, they probably know this better than me, but then your D is your data. You want to have your separate data, whether it be RAID 5, RAID 10, whatever the case may be. So you separate those drives out like that, and you'll have a good server set up from the beginning. Then of course you can go into clustering, high availability, server farms, the whole 9 yards, and I won't get that detail into that. So one of the ways to do this is by proactively monitoring these drives to see and set thresholds to say, if our drive ever gets 60% full, send an email to Susie and Bob, medical manager or the executive of whom. Depends on how big your organization is. You may have IT people. So some proactive monitoring and maintenance of the server can spare you a lot of problems down the road. Number 5, you want to regularly check critical built-in logs. That's that log file server that I talked to you about. Those logs are important. Very few tech problems emerge suddenly overnight. Those logs can tell you. I mean, they typically progress. These problems will progress and worsen over time into a more serious problem. Frequently reviewing the critical built-in logs can often indicate something is amiss before it becomes a major problem that wrecks your entire system and wreaks havoc on your entire medical practice. So those are the 5 things. One thing I would say before I cut off here is that you might want to look into the benefits of managed cloud migration for your medical practice. I mean, many medical practices today are turning to the cloud and virtualized backup solutions as a means to mitigate downtime and recover from network failures and outages. It's really, I mean, we've done a whole bunch with different vendors that we've worked with. When we come in, we don't care what vendor you use. We do, give you advice on whether or not that vendor is good or not. But you pick whatever vendor you want, and we help you with that vendor to get you into the right solution. I mean, virtualizing and cloud computing have enabled cost-efficient, improved practice and business continuity by allowing the entire server to be grouped into a software bundle as a virtual server. So if you have 2 physical servers, you can have a bunch of virtual servers. It saves you a lot of money. I mean, this includes all your data, your operating systems, applications, patches, you name it. This also simplifies the backup process and allows for quicker data restoration when needed. So, but migrating to the cloud or virtualization infrastructure must also be handled with care as these new technologies still pose significant risk. For instance, if you have two physical host machines and 10 apiece, 10 virtual machines on each of those host machines, and one of the host machines gets corrupt, then all those virtual machines are as well. So you just want to have a plan. While these virtual resources and hosted services reduce the overall technology expense and improve availability, managed cloud migration itself allows for a gradual integration of your IT infrastructure and vital data center or your actual virtual data center to the cloud. This can alleviate a lot of security and privacy fears that come with moving to the cloud. But what you have to think about is this: nothing is 100% safe. Nothing. That's why I'll just wrap it up by saying, if you're going to go to the cloud, don't just use a public or a private cloud by itself. Use a hybrid cloud so that you have control both in the cloud, your data in your virtual data center, and in your local data center. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share it with a friend or colleague. And my name is Manuel Lloyd. We specialize in IT service management, and my contact information is on the front of this. Maybe it's not. Someone's telling me it's not. Well, you can call me at 910-210-0485, 910-210-0485, or you can email me at manuel@mwlconsulting.com. That's manuel@mwlconsulting.com. Thank you so much, and have a very, very great day and a happy new year.